Hello, friends. This is Dolores Williams of DW's View. Stand up. If we do not stand up for what we believe, who will? This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. My sponsor makes this podcast possible. If you are a leader, professional, or an entrepreneur who is feeling frustrated or anxious because you're not performing at the level that you know that you are capable of, then you need to unlock your life today and get your complimentary strategy session with Coach Kim at unlockyourlifecoach.com. I want to thank my sponsor, and I want to thank all of you. And I also want to give you access to DW's View Patriot Shopping Club. If you're looking to make a switch from the big box retailers to a Patriot-owned business where you can shop for products that are better, safer, and less expensive than the stores, and you're saving 30 to 50% for products made here in America, then you've got to go to DW's View, patriotshoppingclub.com and take a virtual tour, excuse my voice. And to my audience, I want to thank each of you for taking the time to watch or listen to my podcast. I am blessed to introduce you to my special guest, Mr. Bruce. Let me see, Bruce, I want to make sure I'm saying your last name right. Goodmansen.
Goodmansen, that's correct.
Okay, very good. Bruce is married to his sweetheart, Pam, and together they have 5 children and 8 grandchildren. We have allowed the master, okay, here, let me tell you a little bit about Bruce. I went a little bit ahead, but Bruce was allowed to make the master's program of Instructional Science as an undergraduate. After he graduated, he completed and served as president of Thanks America Press, which generated training programs for companies. Excuse me, Bruce. He created Fire Up the Soul, LLC, and that was a company that produces motivational products such as God is My Guide. And his first book was the official Snipe Hunting Field Guide, and it was a bestseller. And also, he authored The Parents Who Give a Damn. And his new book is entitled 100% Success Without College. This is like an encyclopedia, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, this book, and to inspire parents and college kids and students. And we just want to inspire everyone because Bruce is going to debunk a whole bunch of stuff about college. And I'm going to give him a chance to do that. Now, Bruce, let me welcome you to DW's View Stand Up. And I want to thank Robin Ellis for referring you to DW's View Stand Up.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Amen. Amen. Now, I want to ask you this. Were you at the Clay Clark Reawakening Tour here in San Diego?
I was. Yes.
Oh, okay. Now, where do you live in San Diego?
I live in Gilbert, Arizona.
Oh, okay. Now, were you a speaker at the conference, or you just attended?
I've been a speaker at Clay Clark's a number of times, and then I was just promoting my book at that time.
Oh, okay. Great. Well, I'm glad that you Robin ran across you and shared you with this podcast. Now, I have a question for you, Bruce. At what point in your life did you realize that our children can be successful without going to college?
Well, it probably was about 30 years ago when I myself was in college. I was the Dean's Graduate Assistant in the College of Education, and I was realizing that the National Education Association was basically destroying our kids' education at that time. In fact, there came out a report called A Nation at Risk, which came out in 1983, that basically said that if a foreign country came in and produced the mediocrity that we find in our nation's education system today, we would have declared it an act of war. Now, Dolores, that was back in 1983.
Mm.
And we've gotten far, far worse than that. So much worse. So, but then the strongest impetus or motivational factor was about 4 or 5 years ago. I was working for a law firm, a bankruptcy law firm. And this young woman came dancing into our office, so excited. And I met with all of the clients for the very first time. And she was going to be bankrupting on her $220,000 loan. But then we realized, well, she confided in me that it was all student loan. And I had the misfortune, the unhappy task of telling her that you can never, ever, ever legally bankrupt on a loan. She had $220,000 worth of debt. And that debt was designed, or she gained that debt so she can be a high school guidance counselor and for our children. Now, there are a couple of sad parts to this story. One is that here she was professionally trained to be a high school guidance counselor, and yet she didn't know in all of her training that she can't bankrupt on a student loan. She didn't know it. And this kind of gives you the understanding of just how weak the training is in our colleges across the nation. And two, we did the math. She was going to start an income of $42,000 as a guidance counselor. But after doing the math, she was going to have to be paying $2,400 a month on her student loan only. She couldn't afford to be a guidance counselor. There's no way. But the worst of all of this is that these institutions have basically demanded our nation's youth to pay these outrageous funds or monies to basically be a service to our kids. Who in the world would charge somebody $220,000 to be a guidance counselor? That's insane. So I wrote a white paper about the college debt debacle that we now have for our clients. And from that, I thought, well, there's got to be other opportunities out there that are superior to college. And sure enough, I found a plethora of opportunities, and they're everywhere. And so this is what basically motivated me into going and saying, look, mom and dad, you've got to understand that it is a myth. No, it's a lie that college is the only pathway to the American dream. It's just not true. But our high school guidance counselors back in the late 60s, early 70s began to basically terrify parents and students into believing that their kids and themselves would be deadbeats if they failed to be accepted into college. And so they basically glorified the college experience by downcasting the trade professions. And it was an evil word because the trade professions are wonderful places to go. You can make wonderful fortunes off in these institutions. So that basically was the start of the book, 100% Success Without College.
Now, are you able to share this information in schools and with parents? And if so, how is it received?
Well, I've basically the information. The problem with sharing it in schools, Dolores, is that the first section of the book explains in vast detail with a mountain of facts just exactly what's happening to our nation's education system. For example, right now, K through 12, after that experience is over, our nation's high school students, according to the nation's report card, 71% of them are not proficient in reading, writing, math, science, and US history. In fact, of all the nations of the world, our students are ranked academically 26th. 26, which means our teachers are ranked 26th in the world. So In the first section of the book, I hammer how poor a job our K through 12 and college institutions are doing for our young adults. So it's not very well received, or would be well received in a school setting. But as for parents, oh my goodness, they're eating this book up, because they're finally saying, see, the problem, Dolores, is this: the guidance counselors talk so much about college that parents and students knew very little about that world of trades, of apprenticeships, of entrepreneuring, of sales. They were all so gung-ho for college, but our colleges are killing our kids. Right now, the only thing that college is offering our kids right now is a loss of faith, a loss of love for our country, a mountain of debt,
Yep.
and no skills.
I totally agree. Totally agree with you, Bruce. I know you're telling the truth about that, and your book would be competition with the schools. So I can understand why it wouldn't be received there.
And understand, schools and colleges, they're salespeople. They're there to sell their majors. They're there to sell you on the idea of critical race theory. They're there to sell you on all kinds of things that just don't make sense, because a great education means that a young adult has a command of the fundamental processes of both word and number, that they can read well, write well, speak well, and think well. That's it. Everything else is hogwash. It's of no value. So this is, again, the purpose of the book. And the parents normally, they go to my website, anythingbutcollege.com, anythingbutcollege.com, to get the book. You can get it on a PDF form, or you can get it on the softbound. But it goes into great deal, for example, about really what's wrong with our education. And I open up by saying that, mom and dad, you've got to realize that college is of no value to 85% of our nation's workforce. Again, it's of no value to 85% of our nation's workforce. Many people think just the opposite, that most of our workforce has a college degree. Well, it's just not true. 85% of them do not. Even more, out of 100 students who are accepted into college, 50 of them are going to drop out. It's a statistical fact. In fact, we now lead the world in college dropouts. And of the remaining 50 students who do graduate, 30 of them will end up in jobs they could have gotten straight out of high school. And note this, there are roughly 30,000 occupations to choose from. And yet the typical university offers roughly 85 majors. That's it. Just 85 careers to choose from at a college out of 30,000. And so it's no wonder why when a young adult goes on the college campus, the majority of them are declared undeclared, because they see so few options and nothing really strikes at their heart. And they're trying to find something, they're trying to get into it. And so they go into limbo for their first 2 years of their college experience. And then at their junior year, at the beginning, they are forced to pick a major because they have to move on. And they just pick something out of the blue. Sometimes it's business, sometimes it's accounting, sometimes it's gender studies, who knows? But at the end of their program, they graduate and then they find themselves stuck because they got into a profession they really don't want to be in. Even more, 36% of our college students will not demonstrate any significant improvement in learning or in skills over 4 years of college. This means that a third of our college graduates will be no better off, no better prepared, or better skilled than the day when they stepped on campus as freshmen. What a waste of life and tuition, 36%.
My goodness, that is a very high number. Hey, let me ask you this, Bruce. Now, you created Think America Press to work with companies on training programs. Are you still doing that? And if so,
Oh,
how do students get connected with these programs? And is there an age limit?
to the book?
Yeah, Think America Press. Now you created that to work
Well,
with companies.
that basically came to an end, Dolores, about 20 years ago.
Oh, okay, okay.
So when I was right out of college, that I started this company and I did training programs and so forth, because that was my major. It was instructional science, the art of training. And then I moved on to a company called Fire Up the Soul, and we created motivational products such as the God is My Guide Compass, which is now found on Amazon, which is basically part of my book. And why I say that, Dolores, is because part of my book talks about entrepreneuring. And I've been an entrepreneur all my life. And
Mm-hmm.
I created this product called the God is My Guide Compass. And it's a unique brass compass. But what's unique about it is at the position of north on the compass face, I took out the letter N and replaced it with the word God. For God
Okay.
is our guide and true north. And I placed it on Amazon about 3 years ago. And 3 years later, I've sold about 20,000 compasses.
Wow.
So this is the nature of what I'm doing now. And now my focus, because it's always been the strongest part of my heart is ensuring that our kids get a great education, is getting the book out into the hands of parents to simply say there's a better way. Because right now we have 44 million college students who have an average debt of $37,500. That's insane. And for the most part, these kids don't realize how to manage that debt. I've got a brief story in the book, for example, of a young woman who's an elementary teacher. And for 10 years, she has been paying on her loan faithfully. She hasn't missed a payment. After 10 years, she's paid about $40,000 into her loan, but she still owes $17,000 more than when she started paying 10 years ago. And it's because her income of $50,000 is so low, she can't afford to pay much more than the minimum. And when you pay the minimum on a student loan, you're not cutting down the principal. You're basically adding to your debt. And so again, this is the purpose of the book. I talk about you've got to wake up, because mom and dad, when you're young adults, take out a student loan and you co-sign for them, you now lose 7 consumer protection rights. And like I said, one of them is bankruptcy. So it's killing our kids. They're now almost in servitude, and they will have this debt until they start collecting Social Security. And when they start collecting Social Security, they're going to even draft it out of their Social Security to continue on paying this debt. That's how evil this thing is. So, and it's there, and these kids are paying these debts. And the reason why our kids aren't performing very well in the workplace is because right now there has been a 50% decline over the past few decades in a time a student spends in research and study hours. And why? It's because these professors and these college presidents are not fools. They realize if they had these kids having to struggle as hard as kids 30 years ago did in college, these kids would be leaving their college systems in droves. And so to keep them there, they placate them with a soft, dummy down curriculum. And that's why they're now paying these ungodly tuitions, which have increased by 1,400% since the 1970s, which is 4 times the inflation rate. So all of this is going on. And parents can't conceive, or even students can't conceive. For example, think on this. Every trade school, every single trade school or apprenticeship program provides its students a job skill upon graduation. every single one of them. But college majors can't come close to making the same claim. I can only think of maybe 10 to maybe 15 college degrees that will provide a student with real marketable job skills. That's about it. You can just count them on your hands. And so parents don't see that though. They see their kids going in there and coming out and making these wonderful incomes when you've got now PhD graduates who are working as baristas at Starbucks. And let me give you this fascinating survey. It showed, it's remarkable. I found this a few days ago, but it showed that the US is home to, let's see, 115,000 janitors. Excuse me one moment. I've had a bit of a cold this past few days. But there are 115,000 janitors, 16,000 parking lot attendants, 83,000 bartenders, and 35,000 taxi drivers. And what do they all have in common? A bachelor's degree.
Wow. That is amazing.
A
That
bachelor's
is amazing.
degree. And the Harvard business, oh, go ahead, Dolores.
No. You know, I was looking at your bio and I wanted to go over these, and you're covering already some of these things, but I just kind of want to just kind of highlight and reinforce what you're saying. Now you said that almost from birth, our children have been force-fed, and I added indoctrinated into the ideology that there's only one clear pathway to future success, college. Well, and then you have debunked all of this in your book, which I think is wonderful. And then in your book, you talk about the billions and millions of dollars that are wasted and how to protect our children. Now, I added this too, Bruce, that our government is pushing for universal childcare from birth. And also yesterday, I heard them pushing this transgenderism and puberty blockers for our children from the top of the government, pushing this on for little children. They're already doing this in schools, more or less taking control of the children. I'm talking about younger children, taking control of these children, taking them off campus, trying to get children to do things without parents' permission, and all these kind of things that are happening in the schools. Younger children I'm talking about. So parents don't have any rights to their own children. So who's going to help our children learn about the hundreds of educational opportunities that are often hidden from sight? This is in your information. Who's going to help our young adults find the right career? And who's going to bring about both joy and the perfect income for them? Because Bruce, what you're saying is true. And one other thing I wanted to add is that what do you really think the high school guidance counselor, you talked about the high school guidance counselor, and I was looking at that, who's responsible for over $500 students. How is that guidance counselor going to counsel the kids? And how do students get around the counselor if they disagree with what the school is teaching them? They're kind of forced and tied into a guidance counselor. Each one of them I know have a counselor. So if they have a different idea about how they're going to, change their career, or maybe they don't want to go to college and they're maybe being coerced to go by the guidance counselor. So how do they get around that?
Well, let me address your topic of elementary school in the first place.
Yeah.
I am counseling parents as hard as I can to keep their kids out of the public school education system. You have to do it. I want you to understand here something, Dolores, and your families to understand. Right now, we've got these moms who are homeschool teachers, okay? Their students, which are their children, on average, score in the upper 80th percentile in all the critical subjects. These are just moms. They are just moms. But on the other side of the coin, you have teachers who are professionally trained, college trained to teach, and yet their students are scoring in the mid-range 60th percentile. So here you have the amateur teacher, a mom, having their kids score in the 80th percentile, and yet a trained teacher, their kids are scoring in the 60th percentile. What is going on here? Why? Matter of fact, there's a story that just came out of a mom who had 10 children, and she homeschooled all of them, every single one of them. And she said, not one of her children were gifted. They were just average kid, yet every single one of them graduated from high school at the age of 14. Now, why isn't our nation's teachers doing exactly what this mom is doing? Well, they're not, because they are basically dumbing down the curriculum, and they're putting in all these other topics, critical race theories, genderism, climate change. You can name all these kind of fake educational opportunities. And I'm just saying that if they focused on our kids and giving them the primary skills they need, we would be extremely successful, but they're not. So coming roundhousing back, I'm saying to parents, your kids are going to begin their destruction of their life if you keep them in the public education system. And you got to find another way. Now, as for the high school guidance counselors, I forgot what they're called, the American Guidance Counselor Association or Counseling Association, they just changed the name of guidance counselors to school counselors. And the reason why, they have in their website saying that their mission now is to say that the school, the public education, is all about, quote, racial justice and justice. And that's a pretty strong word, but racial justice starts at school.
Wow.
That's what they're about now. So they're no longer really guidance counselors. They're now school counselors, and their primary responsibility now is to ensure that there's diversity, inclusion, and equity involved in the students' minds, that they understand this. So even if they go to the guidance counselor, they're not going to spend that much of a time on now career guidance. They're just going to be basically trying to find a way and a means to bring it in to racism that's apparently out there somewhere in the universe. But it's interesting, Dolores, when they talk about all of this racism, they can't point it out. Where is it? Where is it? Are there racists out there? Of course there are. Are they strong in number? Maybe a percent, but we'll always have that percent in our communities. There's not much that we can do about it.
Yeah, that's just human nature, and it's always been. I agree with you, Bruce. We've always had racists, and we will always have people who are racist. There's nothing you can do about that. But to put that on children and even require critical race to be learned as a prerequisite to graduate from high school and now college in California, I mean, it's total indoctrination of children's minds and making them hate what we used to love, hate their country, hate people based on the color of your skin. And I see that all the time. People who, even who hate and who don't like people. You don't even know this person, but yet because of the color of their skin, you judge. And we've completely gotten away from what Martin Luther King said. You judge on the content of character, not the color of skin. Color of skin has nothing to do with our character.
It's a pigment. It's no big deal. But there are powers that are in this country that are divide our families, divide our nation, and they're dividing our families by this gender nonsense, and they're dividing our nations by this racist nonsense. And again, I say, okay, if there's systemic racism or institutional racism, show me where it's at. Do banks disallow minorities to open up a banking account or get a home loan? If there is, well, then they have the law to destroy that, but it isn't there. Are restaurants keeping minorities out of their restaurants from using their services? If there is, then we have the laws to stop that too, but there isn't. Are we keeping minorities out of our public schools and out of our colleges? Well, if they are, show me it. And we have laws to take care of that. But they can't show you, so we can't use the law to stop it. And therefore, they just call everyone a racist.
Yeah, and that's just sickening. It's really very well. It's evil, is what it is. I just call it evil.
It's evil, and it breaks my heart.
Yeah,
because I love all my fellow man.
Yeah,
I love them to death, whatever their color is, and the majority of us do so, and we get along quite well. But they are trying to destroy this, and I'm trying to say, parents. A lot of this indoctrination is happening in the college experience. It's just getting out of hand. Right now, our college professors are basically the thought police, and 75 to 85% of them are liberal, and they're indoctrinating our kids into the extent that they basically are starting to hate various things that are happening in this country that really aren't happening. And if you try to explain to them that they are going down the wrong road, they will simply cut you off and say, well, you're using a form of hate speech, and therefore I don't have to listen to you.
Oh yeah, that's the council, the council culture. They're counseling anybody that they don't agree with, and we have no say in it. Our word doesn't mean one thing. It's just we counsel you out if you don't agree with us, and that's basically it.
Well, I guess with all of this nonsense that's going into college, the question I would ask your parents is, why would you want to send your kids to college? Why? Again, they're going to take away your child's faith, your child's love for country. They're going to fill them up with a mountain of debt. And importantly, they're going to come out with little skills, because I'm telling you, corporate America is not impressed with the college graduates that are coming out. In fact, they're so unimpressed that they're sending all of their training programs to the community colleges. The community colleges are now the places, for example, here in Arizona, we have Boeing, Intel, Cisco, who are sending their programs to 10 community colleges throughout the valley. And when these kids graduate, they've got a straight line into a job because they have the skills that these companies are looking for. But they can't find them from college graduates. They're just militant, they're angry, and they have no skills. So this is why I wrote my book, 100% Success Without College, because it literally serves as a vast encyclopedia of the hidden career training opportunities that are offered outside the college arena.
Yeah, I think that's great. That is wonderful. I wanted to share real quickly with you, Bruce. Now, my sister lives in Texas, and she was telling me about them starting in middle school. They're looking to build a middle school where they were focused on teaching kids skills on how to use their hands, so that when they graduate from high school, they will be skilled coming out of high school to do the very thing that you're talking about. And I know out here in San Diego, I don't know how many schools are actually doing that, but they did have some schools that were teaching skills in high school, plumbing and working woodwork and all those kind of shop and all those kind of things, welding, so that when kids got out of school, they had the skill, they could go directly and work for a business and work a little while and even open their own business, get trained. So yeah, that used to happen more in America. And
Oh,
that's
it did.
something that's been taken away.
It was, and it was taken away on purpose because they
Yeah,
wanted kids to go into college because that's where the money is. I mean,
yeah.
these many of these universities have endowments that are in the billions,
Oh,
in the
yeah.
billions.
Yeah, it's just a
And
sham.
it
It's a
is.
sham.
So again, this is why I wrote this book, and it really covers everything. It goes into trade schools, blue and white collar apprenticeships. There are white collar apprenticeships that are out there. Cyber boot camps, entrepreneuring, sales, corporate universities, straight into the workforce after high school. I mean, your son or daughter, if they have a command of the English language, if they have that skill, if they are people, they can go right out of high school and into the workforce if they go into the right corporate arenas and make a wonderful living. I went to the BMW dealership to have my car serviced, and the service advisor was there. It's just this young man. And I asked him, "Are you a college graduate?" And he says, "No, I'm just a high school graduate." And I asked him, "Tell me your story." Well, he started off for BMW as washing cars. He just washed cars. That's all he did all day long. Then he was moved to the tire department, and then he was moved to another department. And then he was moved to become a service advisor, earning starting salary of $68,000.
Wow.
And his associate, who's been there a couple of years longer than he has, who also has a high school degree, he's earning $80,000. So your kids can make a great living if they're very personable and they have a command of the English language right out of high school. But if
Yeah.
they want to learn more, that's what the book does. And just to give you a taste of the book's breadth, try to answer these questions. For example, where do our nation's baseball umpires get their training? What foundation offers $100,000 to high school students to skip college? Skip college. What chef school has the nation's best placement program? And by the way, when we talk about chef schools, yes, there are chefs in restaurants, but there are opportunities in the chef arena that are also opportunities. For example, our nation's zoos need chefs for their animals. Our nuclear submarines need chefs, and nuclear submarine chefs makes a wonderful living. And there are personable chefs that go into the homes of their clients to prepare a meal. So you can think of a wide variety of, you talked a little earlier about welding. Well, there are welders, and then there are wow welders who weld underwater. These guys are making over $200,000 a year. So I'm saying that there are so many opportunities out there well, for example, there are about 3.5 million jobs, 3.5 million jobs with a $92,000 median income that will go unfulfilled due to a lack of trained technicians.
Mm,
We don't have
that's
enough.
sad. That is sad, Bruce. That is that shouldn't be in America, but
Let me tell you another quick story. Here's this young man, high school dropout, buys wholesale a bundle of men's winter underwear, takes them up to the Pacific Northwest, and sells these long johns to lumberjacks. Well, he earns $1,500, and he takes that $1,500 and he moves himself back to Washington, D.C., borrows another $1,500 to buy an A&W root beer franchise. Well, then he buys another, and then another. And after 20 years, he decides to buy a hotel. And then he buys another, and then another. And the name of this high school dropout, this underwear salesman, this entrepreneur is John Marriott of the Marriott Hotel.
okay.
That's how he started off.
My goodness.
A powerful part of my book is about sales and entrepreneuring. And these opportunities are out there.
Yeah, well,
There's a 2-year trade school certification that commands a median income of $135,000. That's incredible. So this is the power of my book. It goes into everything out there to simply say, you know, you can be trained, for example, as a software engineer through a school that has a 99% placement program, earning a median income of $109,000. But here's the kicker. This school doesn't require a paid tuition until a job is landed.
Wow.
But parents don't know about this. Students don't know about it. And this is the power, again, of the book. It shows you these hidden things. It's all about opportunity studying. It's saying, look at the whole world, mom and dad. Don't just look at these 82 careers that are offered on a college campus. Again, there are 30,000 occupations.
Yeah.
30,000, and they're out there and they're powerful and they're financially rewarding. And so I'm basically saying to mom and dad, it's a wicked lie that college is the only gateway to success. And you're going to be amazed to learn about the vast hidden world of career training opportunities that are offered outside the college arena. Training opportunities that, in fact, offers a wide range of fortunes to be earned. So this is the power of the book. And I'm just saying, look, mom and dad, if you decide to send your kids to college, and this is hard hitting, if you decide to send them, you are in fact financing the destruction of our country. This is what you're doing. This is how bad college has gotten. And I say that because I researched the arena of college and I know what these professors are doing. They have curriculums that are powerful to basically, again, destroy a child's faith. And they're, do you realize that the NYU, Columbia, Harvard, Yale, Berkeley, many universities are having porn taught in the classroom.
Yep.
You can, a young freshman boy or a young girl can walk on campus for the first time and they're going to see booths set up advertising sex workshops.
Yeah, I know you're telling the truth, and you know they're they're starting in elementary too. You know, they're starting in the elementary schools with this stuff and with this pornography, and then they have these people coming in, a little boy teaching these children with the folks men who are dressed like women, and they're doing these meetings, and I don't even understand why parents would bring their kids to something like that. You see a man dressed as a woman who's performing, and they sit there and as though it's a comedy show, but it's not funny at all. It's terrible.
Well,
yeah.
So, again, this is the power of the book,
Yeah.
Dolores. Again, if parents want to learn more about it, they can go to, it's a very informative website. It's at anythingbutcollege.com. Anythingbutcollege.com. So.
Well, thank you, Bruce.
Well, thank you, Dolores.
I appreciate you coming and sharing on this subject, and I hope and pray that parents would take it to heart, because you're telling the truth in this, and we have to. I will say, as Christians, we have an obligation to tell the truth and to inform people, because I've known of people who their children have gone off to college and they come back and they don't even recognize their child because they've been indoctrinated. I mean, if that child is not totally rooted and grounded in the Lord Jesus Christ, and they know that they know that they know, and even going into the military is frightening today. With the indoctrination that's taking place there in the military. So they have to know who they are before they go off into college and into the military, because I tell you, the indoctrination is full blown, and it's not anything to do about God or Jesus Christ. It's the opposite.
Well, thank you, Dolores. I appreciate your time. You're wonderful.
Yeah, well, I appreciate this time, and I'm just praying we can promote your book, give a little bit of promotion from DW's View, and I'm gonna certainly, I don't know, I send this out to everybody I know, and Kim promotes it. We promote it on social media, and I hope and pray we can get this book, help with a small portion of getting this book and information about what God has given you. And you shared a wealth of information that's so needed today. And,
I appreciate it.
And I thank you for what you're doing, and for hope that you're bringing hope to parents and to youth and to families, that they can succeed without going to college, And so I just think they just need to know about it.
Okay.
And get this book in their hands.
All right, Dolores. Thank you.
Amen. Okay. And then thanks again to Bruce and to each of you, my audience. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch and to listen to this podcast. If you have a message to share and you'd like to be a sponsor on this podcast, then you contact me at dwstandup@gmail.com. Remember to subscribe to my podcast, get the latest recording, and share this message with your friends and on social media. And be sure to join us next week. We'll have another guest at DW's View Stand Up. And my weekly challenge, Bruce, is to my audience: if we do not stand up for what we believe, who will?